So I thought I'd do a little follow-up to the video I had yesterday and kind of the discussion I've been talking about with the comment about female leaders and them being able to lead just as well, but they got to adjust their personality, makeup, or their behaviors just a little bit to fit the role. Same with males. To be more effective, they should also do it. And this came across my feeds 2 or 3 weeks ago. Actually, it kind of makes sense because it's published in January 23rd. And I thought it was kind of interesting, so I'd like to go over it with you because it's kind of about the American dream, as it were. Something that, you know, feminists hate and pretty much all Marxists. And that's do female founders get better results? Well, this person, Dana Olson, is also a female, and she was interested in this to see if it was indeed true. And she went by the data. That's the fun part about this. So let's go down. This is just kind of a description of what she was doing and what she thought about doing. And she thought it was interesting. So, like, PitchBook data shows in 2017 that just 2.2 is all venture capital in the U.S. went to companies solely founded on women. The story is about the same when measured by deal count, so people that actually get the deals. Roughly 4.4 of VC transactions in the U.S. were female-founded companies. And the investor side isn't much more diverse. It's 11.3 for partners at VC firms are actual females. So she got interested. She wanted to understand why this is. Why this is across the board, because these are people that decide to go into business for themselves. You're not trying to get a leg up. You're not trying to move up a company. You're not fighting with the boss. You're not bitching about gender inequality or income inequality because you're starting your own business. You can pay yourself whatever the hell you want. So within the means of your actual revenue, that is. So this is what she did. She went on a data-driven journey and went back 10 years in her data. And the thing that kind of pops out when you read through this is her preconceptions, her thoughts on the matter and what she was thinking might be the case. So if you see in the middle here, based on those previous reports, I thought our data would support the claim that it's smart for venture investors to back businesses founded by women. Part of my job is staying on top of each tech trend, and one of the biggest stories in the last year had been the male-centric culture in Silicon Valley. And as a corollary, the stunningly low percentage of venture capital invested in female-founded companies. So as a woman in the tech industry with a front row seat to this disparity in funding for men and women, I really wanted our data to support that claim, saying that the data lines with what she's claiming here, which is that it's smart to invest in women that start companies, which is interesting. You would think it should be, right? Because they're just equally as capable, at least in theory. But is that really the case when you look at the money? What happens? And she envisioned an in-depth article and la 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 la, where its female-founded companies are worth more than male-founded counterparts. What I find very, very beautiful about this is that she challenged her conception, she challenged her opinions, and found that the data didn't match up, so she adjusted her opinion. This is the way everybody should be. So clearly this person is not technically a feminist, I would think, because if she was, she would not put things in here. I'm frustrated I wasn't able to bring you the article of my dreams, but even though the conclusion isn't what I expected it to be, I'm going to share my efforts. Below is a look at the data I pulled, which demonstrates dramatic differences between female-founded and male-founded companies when it comes to valuation, exit rate, and follow-on funding. So valuation meaning how much money they're worth, exit rate meaning how much out after the venture deal is done, how much the venture capitalist gets back, and if follow-on funding being when you give additional money because they want to expand the same business. So you help them once, now they're coming back to you to help them twice, so they can, they experience tremendous growth but their capital's tied up, so they need some breathing money, and they want to like go into a different market space or a different area or different demographic and try to expand there. So they need additional funding, and that's what that means. But what's interesting about these wordings in particular, and the reason why I would say this person's not a feminist, is because they didn't say, well, I'm frustrated I wasn't able to bring the article of their dreams. They would say something to the kin of, what it seems to be is there's an inherent sexist bias in venture capital funding and investors, which most likely leads to failures in funding in female companies. They would spin it in such a way to say it's sexist. That's why it's not being funded. This person didn't do that, and this is why I love this data and this article and the way it's done, especially when it's looking at businesses in general. So let's look at the first thing. In October 2017, she looked at the valuation data for companies founded solely by women versus companies founded solely by men. She thought at first that first-round capital found at female-founded companies provide better returns. Maybe they would also have higher valuations. So I compared the valuation numbers for VC, or she compared valuation numbers for US VC deals from 2007 to 2017, so a 10-year span. This is more than enough time for a business to establish itself, for companies founded by women and those founded by men. And for a mix, which is a very good idea to do, she put in a third thing where you put something in the middle, so kind of almost like a control, if you will, but not quite. I mean, she was doing an apples-to-apples comparison and then decided to throw in a bunch of apples, I guess you could say. And she threw in a mixed gender founding, so stuff that was started by a man and a woman. Say a married couple starts a business, kind of the same thing. So what she wanted to find was a steady uptick in valuation and step-up valuations for female-founded companies over the last decade. What she found is the median valuation for female-founded companies was lower in 2017 than it was in 2007. The opposite holds true for male-founded companies and companies that were founded in the mixed as well. But what she's saying is the increase was minimal. I would disagree. This is the valuation. So we're talking about the post-valuation. So they got funding, and then they were valued, and the company value went up or down, right? Well, you look at the numbers here, and they don't lie. You can't. This is economics. You're looking at the money that the company is worth after venture capital is done, and this is how much it was worth. So they started around 15 million, and over 10 years now they're close to 10. So the valuation of that company actually went down. For whatever reason, that's the case. So to Kathy Newman's point, why don't people do this and start their own female businesses and maybe run them in a more feministic way? Well, I can think of one that's actually bleeding money right now, and it's called Feminist Frequency. Didn't they just do a begathon in 2017 trying to get people to just give them money because they were running out of money? That is a female-led, female-run business. They are also into this bubble. So this is all companies that had venture capital, or they had a valuation after the VD post deal, and they're doing worse for whatever reason. I would wager a few things in this. Maybe it was business choice. Maybe it was product marketing. Maybe it was the culture that they developed. If they tried to make it an all-feminist company, for example, that has never been a successful business model from what I've seen. There's been a few that have been tried over the last 5 years alone, and we've all seen them. How many are still left? That is a very good question everybody should be asking themselves. These feminist-only, fully ran companies, how many are left? How many are bleeding themselves dry? How many have to go out and do a GoFundMe campaign to just fund their operations and then not deliver on what they promised? Anita. But at any rate, you look at the male and female founded and the male only founded, and you'll see that they kind of stay within the same arc. They actually have a few deviations, which is what you would expect. But all in all, there's just positive trend over a 10-year span. I mean, there's a little dip, and there's some shit that happened between 2010 and 2013, obviously. But beyond that, it was a steady growth. So I want you to look at next the median step-up valuation for VC deals. And if you remember, the step-up in the description was secondary funding, essentially. So this one was kind of flat, which was interesting. If you look at the all-female, it went up and down, and it kind of just remained flat. All male founders, same trend, but there was a bigger deep in 2009, and then it stayed just slightly above. And then the male and female, they seem to be the best. The last 2 years, not so much. And I think this is probably because the data is not completely out. So this was a dead end, because it should look about the same as the other side. So, but you could see it kind of evened out. But women are still on the bottom of this curve, even though it's pretty close. And the data has been reflected to reflect all of 2017. I wonder why this is this way then. That seems a bit odd to me, that they would be almost neck and neck right there. Market stagnation might be a reason. Donald Trump might be a reason. There's a lot of different reasons why this might be there. We had a very interesting year in 2017, so to see the market stagnate and venture capital step up valuations is kind of weird. So let's look at what she found out in November. So she did a deeper dive into the data, and the valuation data was showing that male-founded companies actually have a higher post valuations than women. She thought she'd take a look into other measurements that can indicate success with investors. She looked at percentage of VC-backed companies that received follow-on funding, and the percentage that have exited, broken down by industry, separated by gender of the founders. What she wanted to find, and this is the thing I love this article for, is she goes what she wanted and what she got. So it was her hypotheses, essentially, although kind of a sloppy, not exactly 100% scientific, but at least she put up her assumptions and her hypothesis up there that she was testing. And then the actual results where she challenged her hypotheses and came out with something different. That's the thing I love about this article. I don't know how many times I'll say that, but it is what it is. Anyways, even if female-founded companies were still less valuable than their male-founded counterparts, she hoped to find a better exit rate or a better chance of receiving follow-on funding. And even that, if that wasn't true for all industries, perhaps it would be true for some, because women do excel in other industries where men fail. So this would be a technical truth, depending on what the industry is. At this point, she was expecting a headline: female-founded companies in this industry were more likely to achieve big exits than the male-founded counterparts. What she found is a higher percentage of VC-backed male companies in every single industry receive follow-on funding than the female-founded companies. According to the data, the companies with all male founders received first-round funding 35% of the time. All female-founded companies, less than 2%. Does this say that there's a bias against female-founded companies? It doesn't really say anything, because when you look at a company and you're thinking about giving it money, you're not looking at the person founding it necessarily. I mean, there is that component. It's just like an interview. But what you're also looking into is their business plan, their projected forecasts, their 5 and 10 year plan, their projected balance sheets, their current funding, because you don't go for venture capitalists without an already functioning business. I mean, you can, and it's usually called angel seed investing, but those type of deals are really hard to get into. You usually have to have a product ready and ready to go. You just need help to get it marketed or whatever, get it off its feet, basically. Like, you have a great idea, you have the marketing, you have the everything ready to go, you just lack the funding to get its ass off the ground, and so you go for that, and so that's what an angel thing is. So here's what's fun. There were similar exit trends for exits. For male startup funds required more than 11% of the time, while less than half of a percent of female-founded startups reach the same milestones. IPO numbers are very small for groups, though the numbers were higher for all male-founded teams than all female-founded teams. 1.65 versus 0.06. Throw a dart at any industry, fintech, e-commerce, healthcare, all the numbers say the same thing. So basically, men are getting the money while women aren't. So what's the deal there? I mean, she's just looking at the raw data. There could be a ton of different reasons for that. My money is on the same things that we discussed before in the last video, and the same things that Jordan Peterson put out in the last video. It comes down to assertiveness, people relationships, business acumen, leadership ability. All these things go into this as well. If you start and found a company and you had a great product and all that, you start building it out, and your name is Anita Sarkeesian and you have feminist frequency, and it all goes straight to shit because you don't deliver on what you promised in your products, you actually have no real product that is of marketable value. All you're doing is pushing out, you're basically being paid to push out opinions. Feminist opinions, mind you, but that's pretty much what your business plan is. You're going to fail. That no one is going to pay anyone for giving them opinion aside from religion. That's the only business model where that ever works. And you better have a God involved, and make sure that you put that seed money in so that you can get that jet. That's the only place it works. So she took a closer look at the data. All male founders. Percentage U.S.-based VC-backed companies that received the following follow-on funding by gender makeup. Men, pretty much 35% of the time. Women, not so much. Male and female, though, I thought this was pretty interesting that they're less than 5%, or a little over 5%. Now, why would that be when you saw the other numbers that were almost neck and neck? It's a little bit bizarre. And then you see the numbers for this as well, where she talked about it. So, here's the end, and I'm just going to read this to you because I thought it was this is a brilliant article. At this point, she was considering a straightforward post of the findings, completing data from every industry on valuation, exit rates, so on and so forth, separated by gender. But she felt it was too repetitive as the numbers were so similar across the board. And indeed they probably would be. She still wanted to present the information, though, so she presented it in this fashion, where she put her assumption and then put the conclusion. It was beautiful. This article is so well written. It's beautiful. Some of the numbers from earlier bear repeating, like the 2% of VC funding that goes to companies solely founded upon women. Only 11% of the partners at VC firms are female. If the numbers are any indication, it's much more difficult to secure follow-on funding than receive acquisition offers if you're a woman. The tech industry, or the tech world, needs more female VC investors, more female-founded startups, and more funding for women. Maybe more female VCs will lead to more funding for women, or maybe more funding for women will lead to more female-founded startups, maybe both. I don't know exactly how the cycle is going to work out, but one thing is clear. There's a lot of room for numbers to go up. There is one reason to hope, for both according to the numbers and anecdotally. The percentage of VC deals and capital that goes into female-founded companies has risen over the last decade, and female founders and investors become more and more vocal about closing the gender gap as years go on. But there's a lot of work to be done. And this is where it goes right back to feminist acumen, and I think the reason why she did this. What I found interesting is she pointed out that the VC firms only had 11% of female investors. In leadership positions, the numbers are about the same. You look at the same type of thing, it's about 80-20. I could dig the data out and probably show you, but I think I'll leave that for another video. I don't know. It depends on how I want to go into that one. But I believe it's about the same, where there's in any given organization about 20% of it in leadership positions are actually women. As Kathy Newman put so eloquently, that there's only 9, I believe she said, in the FTSE 100 or something like that. It's around 10%. Well, if women and men are left to do their choices, that's what you would expect. This is just following evolutionary biology at this point. Why would you want to increase the numbers? Are you going to force people to go into business? Are you going to force people to risk their money on outlets like Feminist Frequency that just you're paying for an opinion? You're paying for opinion pieces with no relevant data, with no actual evidence, with no scientific backing. They're not even a research firm. They're an opinion piece. It's like a startup wannabe magazine, if you will. It's not worth anything in most cases. I mean, what's the value of an opinion? Now, some opinions are more valuable than others, apparently, because some people get a lot more money than others. For example, Jordan Peterson and his Patreon is a shit ton bigger than Feminist Frequency's entire budget, probably. Just to give an idea. But why is that? Is it because he's a man, or is it because he has something that everybody wants to listen to, given the climate? Whereas the other side is what we're sick of listening to. I don't know. So I'll let you think about this one in particular. I thought this data was interesting. I thought she wasn't a feminist all the way through. When I first read this, I thought it was a brilliant research. She challenged her assumptions. She challenged her opinions. Found out that it was quite the opposite. And then I was left disappointed with the last 2 paragraphs, where apparently it's not sexist. It's just there's not enough women in this industry. We need more women in this industry. To which I say, why don't you get into it and be a venture capitalist and invest your money into a woman-only startup and see what the risk is? Would you be willing to risk your funds on a solely women-started company, considering the trend and the market analysis of how long they stay alive and how long they start up and what their success rate is? Maybe I'll do that as a video next and look at women-only companies and their projected outcomes or their valuations in compared to other industries where men have started to say the same line. I don't know. They'll have to be in the same industry or else it wouldn't be apples to apples. And let's see if I can find some data on that. I think I'll do that for the next one. I hope you enjoyed this video. I found this data just phenomenally awesome. The fact that she challenged her own opinions and assumptions and found out that that's not the way it is, I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you next time.